My brother sent me a list of 5 rules I had to follow if I wanted to attend his wedding. Complete them, he wrote, and maybe you'll be allowed to stand beside us. I read the message twice, smiled, and booked a flight to Bali instead. I didn't argue, beg, or explain why I was done proving my place in a family that only remembered me when it was convenient. Before I left, I sent one final gift to the reception. When my brother opened it in front of every guest, his smile disappeared because the card inside revealed exactly what he had tried to hide from everyone. Here are the rules he sent, numbered, like I was an employee. 1. Don't speak unless spoken to. 2. Come alone, no guest. 3. Sit in the back, away from the family. 4. Stand up at dinner and apologize for walking out on us. 5. Never bring up mom's money again. I read rule 5 3 times. That was the only one that mattered. People always think the cruelest thing in a message like that is the tone, the numbers, the maybe you'll be allowed. And yeah, that part stung, but I'd stopped bleeding from his tone a long time ago. It was rule 5 that made my hands go still on the phone because rule 5 wasn't a rule. Rule 5 was a confession. You only make a rule about something when you're afraid of it. You only tell someone to stay quiet about money when the money has a story you don't want told. And I knew that story. I was the only person alive who knew the whole thing. Let me back up, because if I just tell you the ending, you'll think I'm the villain. That's what he was counting on. He spent 3 years building a version of me that everyone already believed. I'm going to give you the version that's true. Our mother got sick 3 years ago. Not the fast kind, the slow kind, the kind that doesn't kill you in a week, the kind that drains your savings before it takes anything else. I lived 4 states away. I had a job I couldn't leave, and a lease I couldn't break, and a paycheck that wasn't big, but it cleared every 2 weeks. My brother lived 10 minutes from her, so he handled it. That's the word he used. Handled. Don't worry about the logistics, he told me on the phone the week after her diagnosis. I'm right here. I'll handle it. You just focus on what you can do from over there. And I believed him. Of course I believed him. He was my brother. He was the one who stayed in our hometown when I left. He was the one in the nice suit at every holiday. He was, in the family's words, the good son. So when he said he'd take her to her appointments, I said thank you. When he said it would be easier if he had power of attorney so he could talk to the doctors and the bank without 3 phone calls every time, I said okay. When he said he'd set up her bills, manage her accounts, coordinate the in-home care, all of it, I said, what can I send? He said money would help most. So I sent money, $800, the first of every month, into mom's account, the one he had the keys to now. It was for her nurse, for her bills, for the little things that kept her comfortable when comfort was the only thing left to give her. $800 a month for almost 3 years. I want to be clear about something, because this is the part the whole family got wrong. I never missed a month, not once. Not when my car needed a transmission. Not when my hours got cut. Not the December I ate cereal for dinner for 2 weeks so the transfer would clear on the 1st like it always did. The 1st of the month, $800 for 3 years. I'm the boring one in the family. Always was. I read the terms and conditions. I keep receipts. I save every email in a folder. My brother used to laugh at me for it. You and your little records, he'd say. Yeah, me and my little records. Hold that thought. Here's where it started to feel wrong, and here's where I told myself it didn't. About a year into mom being sick, the texts changed. At first it was just updates. She had a good day. Doctor says the new meds are helping. Normal stuff. The stuff you cling to. Then it became asks. Hey, can you do a little extra this month? Nurse raised her rate. I sent a little extra. Pharmacy bill came in higher than I thought. Could you cover the difference? I covered the difference. Sorry to keep asking. The home care company switched billing systems and it's a mess. Just send what you can. I sent what I could. And the whole time, a small voice in the back of my head was doing math. Because the nurse, I'd talked to the nurse. Once. By accident. I'd called mom's phone and the nurse picked up because mom was sleeping. We talked for maybe 4 minutes. Her name was Carol. Carol Whitfield. 22 years, a registered nurse, she told me. Half of them in hospice. She had this calm, low voice, the kind that's seen 100 families fall apart and decided to stay gentle anyway. I asked her how mom was doing. She told me the truth kindly. And then I asked, because I'm the boring one and I can't help it, is there anything she needs that I'm not covering? And Carol said, honey, you all are taking such good care of her. Her bills are handled. I get paid through the agency like clockwork. Like clockwork. I remember those words because they didn't match. If the agency paid Carol like clockwork, why did the nurse's rate keep going up in my brother's texts? I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I was 4 states away and didn't understand the day-to-day. I told myself a sick parent costs more than you can ever predict, and that questioning my brother, the one who showed up, the one who stayed, would make me exactly the selfish person I was terrified of being. So I sent more, and I deleted that thought. But here's the thing about being the boring one. I delete the thought. I never delete the texts. The second time the floor tilted, I was on the phone with my aunt. It was maybe 18 months in. I called to check on mom, like I did every week, and my aunt answered mom's landline because she was visiting. I said, hey, it's me. How's she doing today? And there was this pause, this cold little pause. Then my aunt said, oh, so you do still have this number. I laughed because I thought she was joking. I called this number every Sunday. She wasn't joking. It's just nice, she said, that you found the time. Your brother's over here every single day, you know, every day. While you're off living your life, I sat there with the phone against my ear and I couldn't breathe right. Every day. While I'm off living my life. I wanted to say, I send $800 a month, sometimes more. I want to say, I call this number every Sunday and half the time it goes to voicemail. I want to say, who do you think is paying for the nurse you're standing next to right now? But I didn't, because I had no idea what he'd been telling them. I told myself it was a misunderstanding. Aunts get protective. She was stressed. People say sharp things when someone they love is dying. I rationalized it into dust. Then I hung up and I sat in my kitchen 4 states away and I did something something I'm not proud of and I'm completely proud of. I started a new folder on my computer. I named it Mom, and I dragged every single transfer confirmation into it. Every Zelle receipt, every a little extra this month text, every bank notification that said the 800 had cleared on the 1st. I didn't have a plan. I just had a feeling. The feeling was someday somebody is going to ask me to prove I existed. The third time, I stopped being able to lie to myself. It came as a single text from my brother. No conversation before it, no conversation after. Just one message dropped into my phone at 11:14 on a Tuesday night, like he'd been saving it up. Honestly, you stopped being family the day you stopped showing up. I read it standing in my hallway. I read it again, sitting on my floor. You stopped being family the day you stopped showing up. I was showing up $800 at a time on the 1st for almost 3 years through the serial months. I was showing up in the only language I had from the only distance I could afford, and he was standing 10 feet from our dying mother, telling everyone I disappeared. That's when my stomach actually dropped. Not a figure of speech, a real physical drop, like the floor went soft, because the text wasn't an accusation. It was a cover story. He wasn't angry that I'd vanished. He needed everyone to believe I'd vanished. And you don't build a story that elaborate, that consistent, told to that many people over that many months, unless there's something underneath it you need the story to hide. I called him. He didn't pick up. I texted back. I said, I send money every month. You know I do. What are you telling people? The 3 dots appeared. Then they disappeared. Then nothing. That's when I tried to fix it. The first of many times I'd try to fix it and fail. I called my aunt back and tried to explain about the money. She cut me off. He showed us the bank account, she said. He showed us everything. There's nothing in there but his money going out, so please, don't insult us. He showed them the account. He had power of attorney. He could pull up the account, scroll to whatever screen he wanted, and show them whatever told the story he needed. And I, 4 states away with my folder of receipts that nobody had asked to see, sounded exactly like a guilty person scrambling. I had proof, but proof you can't show to the right person at the right time isn't proof. It's just a folder. So I went quiet, not because I gave up, because I finally understood the kind of person I was dealing with, and I understood you don't beat a person like that by yelling. You beat him by waiting until he hands you the moment himself. Mom died in the spring. I drove the whole way. 4 states, 16 hours. I stopped twice, both times in gas station parking lots, both times to put my head on the steering wheel and breathe until I could see straight again. I made it to the hospice the morning of the day she passed. Carol Whitfield was there, the nurse, the real one. She recognized my voice before she recognized my face. You're the one who calls on Sundays, she said softly, and something in my chest cracked open, because at least one human being in this whole story knew I'd been there. She let me sit with Mom. She told me what to expect. She held my hand for a second in the hallway and said, she knew you loved her. I made sure she knew. I'll never be able to repay that woman. Mom passed a little after 2 in the afternoon, and then came the funeral. I want you to understand what it's like to grieve in a room full of people who've been told you're a monster. My aunt wouldn't look at me. When I tried to hug her, she turned her shoulder, the way you turn from a stranger who's standing too close. My cousin, a guy I grew up with, a guy I taught to ride a bike, looked me dead in the eye in the church parking lot and said, it's pretty selfish of you to even come. I asked him what he meant. He said, you couldn't send a dime when she was dying, but you can fly in for the part with the catering. A dime. I'd sent almost $30,000. And my brother stood at the front of that church in a beautiful charcoal suit, sobbing into a white handkerchief, while a circle of relatives rubbed his back and whispered that he was so strong. He did so much. He carried it all alone. He carried it alone. I stood in the back. Funny, the back. Remember the back? And I watched the performance of a lifetime. And here's the part that I think about at 2:47 in the morning. Still, on the nights I can't sleep. Nobody knew about the money I sent. Nobody knew Mom's accounts were nearly empty. Nobody knew where it had all gone. But I was about to find out. 2 weeks after the funeral, I did the most boring thing imaginable. I requested our mother's full bank records. I was her daughter. I was a beneficiary of her estate. What little there was of it, it was completely allowed. I filled out a form. I provided a death certificate. I waited. I didn't tell anyone. Not my aunt, not my cousin, definitely not my brother. I just waited. The way I'd waited my whole life, being the quiet one, the one who keeps things. 2 months later, a thick envelope landed on my kitchen table. I made coffee. I sat down. I started reading. And I want to tell you that I gasped or cried or threw the pages across the room. But that's not what happened. What happened is that I got very, very calm, because there it was, in black and white, page after page. The $800 I sent every month for the nurse, for her bills, for her comfort, gone. Almost always within the same week it landed. Not to the home care agency, not to a pharmacy, not to Carol Whitfield, RN. It went out of Mom's account and into his. And then I followed it out the other side. A car payment, month after month. An auto loan on a vehicle that was not our mother's. A charge for $200 at a jeweler. I looked it up later. A gold watch. And then the one that made me set my coffee down very slowly so I wouldn't spill it. A payment to a place called Willowmere Estate for $4,000. The memo line, entered by whoever processed it, read, deposit, event reservation. A deposit on a wedding venue. He hadn't just lied about me. He'd taken our dying mother's care money, hers and mine, and he'd put a down payment on the wedding he was now charging me 5 rules to attend. I sat in my kitchen for a long time. Then I opened my folder, the one named Mom, the one full of receipts nobody ever asked to see, and I started lining things up. Now, here's where most people would go nuclear. Group text, screenshots, burn it all down in one night. I didn't. I'm the boring one, remember? I wanted it airtight. I wanted it so clean that no story, no charcoal suit, no white handkerchief could ever blur it again. So I started making calls, real ones, to people with credentials and case numbers. The first was an estate estate attorney named David Pruitt, elder law mostly. I sent him the bank records and my folder, and a week later I sat across a desk from him while he tapped a pen against a legal pad. "What your brother did has a name," he said. "Several names, actually. Breach of fiduciary duty, for one. When you hold power of attorney, you have a legal obligation to act in that person's best interest, not yours. You don't get to fund your lifestyle out of their account. This," he tapped the venue line, "is the opposite of a best interest." I asked him if I could get the money back. He was honest with me, and I'll always respect him for it. "You can sue," he said. "Civil suit. Breach of fiduciary duty, conversion, maybe unjust enrichment. But I won't sugarcoat it. It's probate court. It's 18 months minimum, probably 2 years. It's tens of thousands in legal fees that you might not recover. And it means dragging your mother's death through a courtroom with your whole family on the other side of the aisle. You could win and still feel like you lost. 2 years, tens of thousands. To get back money from a man who'd already spent it on a watch and a venue?" I asked if there was a criminal side. "There can be," he said. "Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. That's a real charge in this state. But you'd be reporting it to Adult Protective Services and the police. And I'll be straight with you," he set the pen down. "With the victim deceased and a valid power of attorney on file, these cases are hard. Intent is hard. They get under-prioritized. Don't pin your hope on it. Pin your hope on the civil side if you have the stomach and the savings." I had the stomach. I wasn't sure I had the savings. I called Adult Protective Services anyway. I got a caseworker named Renata Salas. She was kind and overworked, and I could hear other phones ringing behind her the entire call. She took my report seriously. She used the words "financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult," and she opened a case and gave me a number. Then, 3 weeks later, she called me back, and I could hear the apology in her voice before she said anything. "I have to be honest with you," she said, "because the protected party is deceased. Our office's mandate is limited. We protect living adults who are at risk. The exploitation appears clear from what you've sent me. I want you to hear me say that, because I don't think anyone in your family has. But I can't open an active protective intervention for someone who has passed. I'm referring everything to the district attorney's office. After that, it's out of my hands." I thanked her. I waited. The DA's office took 6 weeks to send me a single paragraph. "Insufficient resources to pursue this time. Recommend pursuing available civil remedies." Available civil remedies. 2 years and tens of thousands of dollars. Every official door I opened led to the same hallway. Yes, it happened. Yes, it was wrong. Yes, we believe you. No, we will not do anything about it. Go hire a lawyer and bleed money for 2 years, and maybe you'll get a judgment that he'll spend another 2 years not paying. So I made one more call, the one that turned out to matter most. His name was Marcus Lynn, CPA and CFE, certified fraud examiner. The credential matters, I learned. He was a forensic accountant David Pruitt recommended for the part where you make the timeline undeniable. I sent him everything. Mom's bank records, my 3 years of transfer confirmations, the little extra this month texts, the "you stopped being family" text, Carol Whitfield's "I get paid through the agency like clockwork." 2 weeks later, he sent me back a document and a phone call. The document was a timeline, a single page with 2 columns. On the left, every $800 deposit I'd made with the date. On the right, where the money went and when. He'd matched them up, deposit in, money out, sometimes within 48 hours. "I do this for litigation," he said on the phone, "so I'll tell you the way I'd tell a courtroom. The pattern is consistent and it's clean. Money came into the account from you, earmarked verbally for care. Care was being covered separately by the agency for the nurse's own statement, and the equivalent sums left the account and resolved to personal expenditures, an auto loan, a luxury retail purchase, and a venue deposit. The single clearest illustration is the venue." He paused. "In the same week, you transferred $800 for," and I'm quoting your own memo, "nurse and meds, $4,000 left that account and reserved a wedding venue. I highlighted it for you. If you ever need to show one human being one piece of paper, show them that one. If you ever need to show one human being one piece of paper, show them that one." I had the page, I had the highlighter line, bright yellow, running under the venue deposit. I had everything, and I still didn't have the one thing 2 years of court and tens of thousands of dollars couldn't buy me. A room, the right room, full of the exact people who'd been told I was a monster, all of them looking the same direction, all of them quiet enough to hear one sentence. I didn't have that room. And then, 4 weeks before the wedding, my brother handed it to me. The message came in on a Thursday night. The 5 rules. 1. Don't speak unless spoken to. 2. Come alone. 3. Sit in the back. 4. Stand up at dinner and apologize for walking out on the family. 5. Never bring up mom's money again. Complete them, and maybe you'll be allowed to stand beside us. And I sat on my floor. I do my best thinking on the floor, I've learned, and I felt all the pieces lock into place at once. He needed me at that wedding. Think about it. If I just didn't show up, that fit his story too. Selfish sister, can't even come to her own brother's wedding. But he didn't want absence. He wanted a performance. He wanted me sitting in the back, silent, standing up at dinner in front of 200 people to confess to abandoning a family I'd been quietly funding for 3 years. He wanted to close the story, permanently. He wanted a public apology so that for the rest of our lives, anytime I ever opened my mouth about the money, someone could say, "But you stood up at the wedding and admitted it yourself." Rule 4 would have buried me forever. And Rule 5, never bring up mom's money again. That was him, on the record, in his own words, telling me he knew exactly what was in those bank statements and exactly how much he needed it to stay quiet. You don't make a rule about a thing unless you're afraid of the thing. He was afraid of one page, the page Marcus Lynn had highlighted in yellow. So here's what I did. I didn't text back, not one word. Silence had been my language with him for 2 years. I wasn't going to break the streak now. I opened my laptop. I booked a flight to Bali. One way at first, then I added the return fine, because I'm boring and I like a round trip. I booked it for the week of the wedding. I would be, by my own quiet design, 11 time zones away when his big day arrived, because I wasn't going to fight him in that room. I didn't need to be in the room. I just needed one thing: to be in the room. I want to tell you about the night before I left, because it's the closest I've ever come to changing my mind. I had the box on my kitchen table. A nice box. I'd bought silver wrapping paper and a fat white bow, the kind that sits on a gift table practically begging to be the first one opened. Inside, I'd placed exactly two things: a single folded card, and behind it, one page, the bank statement. The week my $800 landed, and the line right underneath it where $4,000 left the account for Willowmere Estate. Marcus Lynn's highlighter, bright as a warning light. On the card, I'd written one sentence. I sat there at midnight with the pen and I tried out a dozen things. Long things, angry things, a whole paragraph about 3 years and $30,000 in Sunday phone calls and cereal for dinner. I crossed them all out. In the end, I wrote 5 words. Read Rule 5 out loud. That was it. And my hands were shaking. Actually shaking, the pen tapping against the table. Because some part of me, the little sister part, the part that taught my cousin to ride a bike, the part that drove 16 hours with my head on the wheel, that part whispered, he's still your brother. You could just let it go. You could grieve quietly and let it go. But then I thought about my aunt turning her shoulder. I thought about my cousin saying a dime. I thought about my mother in her last spring, her account draining while a man told everyone he was carrying her alone. And I thought about that $4,000 deposit on the party where he'd now be smiling in a charcoal suit. And I thought, I'm not going to hurt him. I'd spent 2 years learning I couldn't anyway. Not with courts, not with caseworkers, not with a folder full of receipts nobody would look at. I didn't need to hurt him. I just needed to stop protecting him. That's all silence ever was. Protection. His protection. Paid for by my reputation. For 3 years. I was done paying. I taped the box. I wrote the delivery instructions, and I went to bed. I arranged for the gift to be delivered to the reception at Willowmere Estate, not the ceremony, the reception. I had it timed for right after the toasts. That warm, loose hour when the speeches are done. The champagne's been poured. The room is full and happy, and everyone's attention is floating toward the front, toward the gift table, toward the happy couple. I'd thought about every part of it the way Marcus Lynn thinks about a timeline. Then I got on a plane. I want you to know I did not spend my flight gloating. I slept, mostly. Somewhere over the Pacific, I woke up and felt, for the first time in 3 years, something loosen in my chest. Not happiness, just the absence of a weight I'd carried so long I'd stopped noticing it. I landed in Bali. I turned my phone on in the airport, and I had 11 missed calls from my cousin. The same cousin who'd called me selfish in a church parking lot. I didn't call back. I just texted, I'm fine. What happened? And he sent a video. I've watched it more times than I'll admit. Here's what's on it. The camera's a little shaky. It's a phone, held low, the way you hold a phone when you don't want anyone to know you're filming. My cousin told me later he started recording on instinct the second the box came out, because something about the silver paper made the back of his neck prickle. You can hear the room first. Clinking glasses. A low, warm hum of 200 people who've just been told a beautiful love story. Then someone announces it. A gift, delivered just now, marked urgent. Laughter. Someone says, open it, open it. That kind of energy. The camera finds my brother. He's grinning. He's holding the box, that fat white bow, and he's playing to the crowd, shaking it next to his ear like a kid at Christmas. His bride leans in beside him, smiling, ready for the camera, ready for the moment. He thinks it's a check. You can see it on his face. He thinks his sister, too scared to break Rule 4, too cheap to show up, has sent money instead. He thinks he's won. The grin is the grin of a man who's about to be handed proof in front of everyone that he was right about me all along. He tears the silver paper. He opens the box. He takes out the card first, and he reads it. Out loud even, because he's performing, because everyone's watching. His voice carries. Read Rule 5 out loud, he says, and he laughs. One short laugh. Confused, looking around like it's a joke he's about to get the punchline to, but there's a flicker right there. You can see it if you slow it down, because he wrote Rule 5. He knows what Rule 5 is. He knows what it was protecting, and his eyes drop to the box, to the page underneath. You can watch the exact second he sees the letterhead, the bank's logo, Mom's name on the top line of an account statement he'd spent 3 years making sure no one in that room would ever see. The smile slides off his face like water off glass. His hand starts to shake. The same hands that held a white handkerchief at the funeral while everyone rubbed his back. They're shaking now, and there's no one rubbing his back, because the whole room has gone quiet in that way. A room goes quiet when it can feel something happening before it understands what. He tries to close the box. He tries to slide the page underneath, palm it, make it gone, but his bride has already seen him change, and she does the thing he didn't plan for. The thing 2 years of courtrooms and caseworkers couldn't do. She reaches over and takes the page out of his fingers. She reads it. The camera's too far to see her eyes, but you don't need to. You can see her whole body still. You can see the exact moment a person's understanding of the man beside her reorganizes itself in real time. She looks at the page. The highlighter line is bright enough to read from 3 tables away. My cousin said you could see the yellow from the back of the room. She looks at him. She looks up at 200 guests, at the flowers, at the band, at the venue, Willowmere Estate, the place with the $4,000 deposit. She looks back down at the numbers in her hand, and then, in a voice that doesn't shake at all, a voice that carries to the back tables, to the same back where I would have been told to sit, where I would have stood up to apologize for a crime he committed. She asks him the one question he spent 3 years making sure nobody would ever ask. Whose money paid for all this?